Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryang Karawawahai Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Ma Vidvishawahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, revision. Kshantihi means accommodation. Kshantihi, glad acceptance. So this means that we are accepting without resistance the choiceless circumstances that come into our lives. If something's come in front of us, then we intelligently work with it instead of pushing it away or wishing it for it to be something that we would otherwise prefer. So this means we get fully involved with whatever is facing us today, because it is a consequence of something that has happened in the past. Therefore, we are turning it into a friend rather than an enemy. Suppose someone doesn't answer your emails, and it's an important event for you. You need a response. So two choices. One of them is we can kind of put a tone of, hey, you're not answering me, hurry up, I'm waiting, right? So this is also a tone of non-acceptance, the fact that someone hasn't replied in a specified amount of time. So then we create this tone of resistance. The other way is you can say, well, this person may be busy, they've got other emails going on, so let's try again with a polite tone. Therefore, you're preserving the situation into a friendly tone rather than submitting it into a tone of resistance. Let's take age, for example. Does powder covering up the wrinkles, does that get rid of our age? Does that make us younger, really? Not really. So the fact of aging, that is a fact. And this means we need to accommodate or find in ourselves the capacity to accommodate the fact of aging, to accommodate the fact of someone not responding in the way that we would want them to respond. The fact that time is moving on, the fact that people are busy, they will not always give us exactly what we prefer and how we would prefer it to be. Therefore, accommodation is accepting what is in front of us right now. And instead of choosing to turn it into an enemy, that is to resist it, rather choose to continue the thread of friendliness between you and that event that's occurring in front of you. That means you're befriending your physical body, which is aging by the day, instead of resisting it and then trying to cover it up, because it doesn't really solve the problem. So it's being totally okay, accommodating your own changes within yourself, within your family, within your work, but also accommodating the environment. And then we talked about Arjavam. Arjavam is straightforwardness. This is whereby we are matching as close as possible the three principles of word, our thoughts, and our actions. We're aligning them as close as possible together. That means we're minimizing the gaps between what we say and what we do and what we think. We're making them congruent as closely as possible. So this means you can ask yourself, based on what I thought, is that what I'm living today? Based on what I said yesterday, how close is today based on what you said yesterday? How close is it? Is it far or is it close? So this means you can gauge how close your words, actions, and thoughts are just by what you said in the past and how are you living today. And if we otherwise miss this straightforwardness, then what happens is it creates through time a split personality. So we doubt ourselves. We doubt our word, the word doubts our actions, and our actions doubt our thinking. So this means we're unable to make a decision and to feel confident about the decision because we're lacking a skill of being straightforward with ourselves. Then we talked about acharyopasanam. That means acharyaha upasanam. Upasana means contemplation upon or meditation. This is service to the teacher because of the understanding of the role that a teacher has in your journey, in any kind of endeavor, in any kind of field of study, not just Vedanta. And we said last week that the scriptures are like your sight. If your eyes are open, then you don't have to do much about the fact that the moment eyes are open, what happens? There is sight of the eyed object. All you have to do is like go like this. You don't do anything about seeing. It just happens. All you do is open eyes and then the sight takes place. Or suppose it's raining and your ears are working. So what's going to happen? The ears are going to pick up rainfall. Whether you like it or not, the ears are going to pick up rainfall. So in other words, the knowledge of rainfall will take place as long as the ears are open, whether you want it to take place or not. In that same way, the scriptures are like an organ as long as you are listening. And the scriptures are being expounded by someone who does not subjectively interpret their words. All you have to do is show up and listen. And just like with the eyes, as long as the eyes are open, as long as the ears are open, as long as the scriptures are being expounded with your ears working, your eyes are focused, knowledge takes place in the background. So this means the Shruti are the instrument for the self, just like the eyes are the instrument for visual objects and colors. Okay. Then we talked about Shaucham. Shaucham is the inner and outer cleanliness, purity. How clean is starting with the external? What kind of surroundings am I in right now? Do I feel like the surrounding currently supports a healthy thought, environment that you want to hang around with all day? Does the environment external support that? Does it promote that? Does it promote a sense of fun and color and stimulation? Does it stimulate you to think creatively? Are all the walls just one color without any posters? Because even color activates the mind, right? All of these external environments play a part upon our how we think. Which way are you facing? Have you tried facing a different direction? North, south, east, west, feng shui, for example. Can you put a flower in the room? Does that make a difference? With different colors, because colors also stimulate the brain. That means they provoke the imagination of the brain. And that imagination is sparking your creativity. Does the environment encourage organized mind? Does it? If the books on the table and the shelves are organized, that also reflects how organized are your thoughts inside, most likely. Are you spending more than 2 seconds finding where things are? Times that throughout the entire lifetime. At the end, you can assess, I spent searching for things maybe 1/10 of my lifetime. So if you're finding things for more than 2 seconds, whatever, 5 seconds, whatever, right? What does that most likely reflect? That I'm also taking time to find the right knowledge when I most need it. But in real life, it's not so forgiving because we need an answer right now. So if you can find things quickly, it most likely represents you can find things quickly when you most need it in your mind, when you're dealing in real life situations. External environment. Then we talked about the internal house. So this was your external house. Now the internal house of your thoughts and your emotions. Equally important. We said that before saying that, why should we clean up our external house? Why do you clean up your external house? Because it bothers you if it's not clean, right? It's hard to work. It's not welcoming if it's not clean. It affects you if it's not clean, whether you like it or not. Why do we clean up the internal house? In that same way, it affects us. But internal house is a lot harder because sometimes we don't even know what is affecting us, but something is still affecting us. So what about keeping your mind healthy, engaged, and active? Does that not produce a fulfilling lifestyle? The moment we stop engaging our minds, contentment goes down. Retirement, right? Can't wait till I retire. In other words, can't wait till trouble starts, because then my mind stops working. I no longer use the mind. So keep the mind engaged in some hobby that you find personal that you have an emotional connection with. The other reason why to clean up the internal house is it's a little bit more philosophical. And this comes from books like the Tibetan Book of the Dying and some near-death experiences from the books that I've read. Think about it this way. When you're happy, do you not want to reconcile your differences with those who we have grudges against? Did you ever have that experience? You're just happy, very happy. And then just in that moment, you're like, you know, I feel like I can connect with someone that I usually have a grudge against. And you actually want to connect with them. So for the moment, your mind has suppressed its notions about what this means, what that means. The full light of Dharma is shining on a mind that is not filtering. And during that short amount of time, you're able to feel clarity, have perception of clarity in respect to you and the world. Therefore, you want to reconcile your differences with what we would call otherwise our enemies. Now, what happens upon death? The Jivatma obviously leaves the physical body. The full light of Dharma, they call it the review process. The full light of Dharma is shining. The Jivatma for a moment goes, wow, I forgot who I was. I am the entire universe. Ooh, let me go through the review process. I've heard this person, holding grudges against that person. I didn't say sorry to my parents. I treated this person like that. The whole process goes there. And you're in a state of total joy because for a moment, you know who you are. Out of compassion for yourself, realizing that these people who you thought were otherwise were only yourself in a different form, since there's only one Ishvara appearing as the many. Realizing all of it was you, out of mere compassion, you choose to incarnate one more lifetime so that you may live out your life properly this time. In other words, one more lifetime. But it's not so simple as that, because when we get born, we get caught up again. So, question for you. Suppose guaranteed tomorrow, die. You will die tomorrow. Can you right now, open heart, open mind to the world, say, I have no issue going tomorrow. There is absolutely no grudges that I'm holding against anyone. Zero. Totally open, completely honest, nothing to hide against anyone. You forgave everyone. You said what there is to say. You hugged whoever there was to hug. You have reconciled your differences with the entire world to the point where you have no issue dying tomorrow. Can you honestly say that I have no issue dying tomorrow because I have reconciled my differences with everyone? If not, that is something to work with. Question then is, who am I holding grudges against? That is someone to work against. As I keep saying, self-knowledge, Atma Jnanam, Brahma Vidya, is the easiest to assimilate, but the real work is our own minds. Because upon death, you think it's all going to get forgotten? No. Where's it going to go? Nothing in this universe can get destroyed. We often think, okay, it doesn't really matter who I forget or who I don't forget or who I hold grudges against. Where's all of that going to go? If it's only one being here, you think it's just going to disappear and Ishvara is going to take care of it and now you're enlightened and no more need to reincarnate. Where is all of those grudges going to go? The only place that can go is back into yourself. Therefore, use your time while you're alive to release any dark images, any grudges, anything that we're holding against someone or something, because it is going nowhere but into the Jivatma, who out of compassion chooses to incarnate one more lifetime, while in the previous lifetime they were going saying, oh, I am liberated, I have self-knowledge, I've listened to the Acharya, I've done all my work, I'm beyond this entire world. It doesn't work like that, because nothing in this universe can get destroyed. It goes into none other than yourself. And in the attempt, out of your love for yourself, which is the entire world, you choose to incarnate again. That's the second reason. Why? To purify the mind. The third reason is because self-knowledge, Atmanyanam, cannot prove itself to your mind unless it is manifest through your physical actions, your thoughts, and your words in the form of values. The person may gain self-knowledge, but that still remains doubtful, shallow, because self-knowledge needs to be proven to whom? Others? No, to yourself. And how does self-knowledge prove itself to your mind? By you choosing to convert that self-knowledge in the form of what you say, how you treat others, how you don't treat others, when to treat others, and also embracing this world as yourself. And that can only come through your thoughts, words, and actions. Therefore, self-knowledge, merely intellectual, having heard it, means nothing. What really means something is converting that through day-to-day, especially during hard times, through day-to-day manifestations of how we treat others, how we treat ourselves. Therefore, it is not as easy as we want it or imagine it to be, as we've been usually told. Just, know your Atma, you're beyond this world, and that is all there is. That is a very simple teaching, but it is still incomplete. So I'm showing you how much more there really is to address here. Can a sports person realize his or her potential unless they go into a competition? No. The sports person needs to go into a competition to realize his or her potential. In that same way, for one who is an aspirant, who wants to know thyself fully, needs to realize their potential. How? By interfacing with the world. Therefore, where's the question of detaching from the world and thinking you're safe? Then, we talked about last week how to apply inner cleanliness in different emotional states, in different experiences. How about inner cleanliness towards a resentful mind towards someone, a mind that's holding grudges against someone in the past, right now, or in the future? How do we apply inner cleanliness towards that? Suppose you're holding resentment against someone. Someone said to you, they did something to you right now, or maybe in the past. One of the things is, suggest to me, how do we apply purity to holding resentment against someone? How can we reframe that? What are some things that we can do to release that grudge?
You recognize first?
Yeah, sure. So you recognize that there is some tension.
But then, okay.
There's some awkwardness, and therefore that's step one, definitely. So this means being upfront and honest, right? Yeah. And then let's follow that up with, we cannot just stop there, right? We cannot just recognize, yep, there's a problem. Okay, next, there's a problem, right? So we need to follow that up with reframing. So this means we can look at that situation now and we can choose to apply Pratipaksha Bhavana, last week we spoke about, by finding alternative methods as to what could this otherwise mean? Because where does and how is resentment built? By making one single conclusion out of many other potentials and then saying that is how things are. So we need to ask ourselves, what else could have that meant? Maybe someone injured them that day. Maybe someone else cut the corner in the car and then they really got angry and they had no choice but to project it onto you. You just happened to be in the line of fire. And now we're having resentment towards that. So there's so many potentials that could have made them act inappropriately towards you. Therefore, it is not fair to put one conclusion and then say that is it with a full stop. So first recognize, then reframe, and then reinterpret.
What happens if you get a situation that's reoccurring where you just cannot reconcile, even by reframing in every possible permutation? You just cannot get to a point where you can release the tension that builds up when you have a certain scenario which keeps coming back. A mantra that I came up with for myself a little while ago to try and get beyond that was, I just don't give a shit. And that was probably the only thing I could get to which would allow me to separate from the issue, because it was something that was unfathomable in any other way.
Sure. Yeah, good, Martin. So, what Martin's saying is, what if you're forced in a situation that it just keeps reminding you of that same, and you don't have enough time to forgive. You don't have enough time to let go, and because you just happen to be at a workplace and your colleague is around you. So it's hard to kind of, you cannot put a wall between there or something.
Andre, I had a similar situation, or in answer to that, and it was ongoing with a work colleague, and it's been going on for days and days and days. And I tried everything, like trying to love the person and think about what had happened to them, and, you know, their kids love them and all of that sort of stuff. And in the end, what I found worked the best, but it still hasn't resolved, is karma yoga. So I just see that the thoughts arising in me, and it's an object to me. And every time it would come up, it would diminish, the thought would go away, but then it would come back, you know, minutes later. But over the last 2 weeks, it's become less and less and less, almost not there.
Okay. Does anyone else have any other situations similar that is reoccurring, and your method of dealing with such a circumstance, if it's reoccurring and it's hard to avoid it? Julie?
I have one, Andre. For me, something that works really well when it's just a pattern that doesn't shift, that I've been struggling with someone, is prayer.
Prayer.
Yeah, just like giving it up and just pray and be patient. Because sometimes you just don't have an answer.
Good. Yeah, good. Thank you. Yeah, I said it's very similar to my method, Julie. Also, I just bless their soul. May they be happy. And I wish them best. I really, you know, wish that they succeed in life and give them a prosperous gesture through prayer.
I was just going to say, I usually, when I'm encountered such situations, I usually question it to myself. Similar to Victor, like I try and bring the thought in front of me, look at it, and then ask, why does it matter? And then more questions arise from that. But as I go deeper, there's no meaning to it, and then it just dissipates.
So like Victor said, something related to karma yoga. So if we have a prasad buddhi sort of attitude, it always doesn't work. But instead of focusing on the situation and the other person, I try to look at it in terms of me and my past actions, being responsible for my current situation, and trying to just learn from it. Obviously it's a lot of practice. It's not always possible.
Yes.
Sometimes obviously it's frustrating, but over a period of time, I've realized the intensity of that frustration or emotion sort of reduces. Even if I'm facing the same situation again and again, maybe my anger will reduce, maybe my frustration will reduce, the way I react changes.
Sure.
But it's just, instead of focusing on trying to find why the other person is doing what they're doing, I instead find it easier to just focus on thinking it as my past actions being the result of my current situation, and just trying to learn from it.
Sure. And this is also putting you in a place of owning your power, owning your feelings, and being responsible, and not putting it on not projecting it. So this is another way of taking responsibility.
It's just, maybe for me, it's more about practicing acceptance, because a lot of situations we can't change. So maybe acceptance is the only way out.
Yeah. So accommodation. So this is a good example of accommodation also. You know, Julie's method, I resonate with a lot. A little prayer, just to acknowledge them as a human being who also, you know, makes some false associations, some false conclusions, and they can lash out. And then later on, 5 years, you know, they're kind of sorry because they realize and they learn more about their behaviors. You know, and even as youngsters, when we were some years ago, you know, we can, from this standpoint, realize that we said some things before and we did some things back then, but from today's educated standpoint, we realize how unfair that was, because we didn't have knowledge, we didn't have enough experience to be able to make to treat the other person as they deserve to be. So this allows us to be accommodative. Okay. Let's apply inner purity to the need to care for others, because sometimes we have this attitude of caring for others is more important than caring for myself. And there's 3 ways of looking at this. The first one is selfless. So this is the selfless folks. You know, this means others' attendance is more important than my own. Life is about attending to the needs who generally need help, and therefore you go and help them. And you're constantly thinking about others. This person also is or tends to let go. In other words, they tend to let go whenever someone gives them some hard time, or that person that they're taking care of, they just let go. They keep on letting go, because it's about others' well-being, others' feelings, others' a state of mind. And who was an example of a selfless fella from the Mahabharata?
Yudhishthira.
Yudhishthira, yeah. So Yudhishthira kept letting go. Even the wax house burnt on fire, right? And then they obviously escaped through the tunnel. And then Yudhishthira didn't mention anything because he just keeps letting go. So in other words, this is another extreme method whereby we lose perspective of the big picture because it becomes about others and you start ignoring your own needs. So this is selfless. The next one is selfish. This is where the person's entire agenda is about themselves. So in other words, they're the center of everything and there's little consideration for the needs of others. This is the selfish method. And who is an example of a selfish character in the Mahabharata? Yeah, I can read the lips, Duryodhana. Okay. Then we have the noble. The noble is in between. Noble is, I recognize that indeed my entire life, I am the center of it. Who else is the center of your life than yourself while being alive, right? So you are the center of your life while being alive, no doubt. And this means you do need to take care of that person who's being carried around 24/7, because who do you carry more around than yourself, your own body? So you attend to your needs fully. You do not ignore them, but at the same time, you consider the well-being of those around you who matter to you, or even who don't matter to you. Because even those who don't matter, if I disrespect them, if I mistreat them, then only I suffer because of those, because of my inherent program that everyone deserves to be treated equally. That means it's in between. It's neither selfless extreme nor selfish extreme. Okay. How about applying inner purity in envy? In a dictionary, we have a clear distinction between jealousy and envy. So what's the difference between jealousy and envy? Jealousy is, for example, if you're with your partner and then your partner flirts with some other person and then you're jealous. In other words, jealousy is, I am afraid of losing out of what matters to me. I'm afraid of missing out or losing something that is important to me. Whereas envy is someone has something that you don't have right now. And therefore, then you say, well, I wish I had that. And then out of that reason, they have more of something that I consider important, valuable. And then there's this feeling of envy. We have a dislike towards them because they're better than us, or we just don't like them to be more successful than we are because they remind us of our smallness. Therefore, I want to be like that person. So that's envy and jealousy. Is this distinction clear? Envy is between not having anything, and jealousy is between something that you already have, and there's a threat of that being lost. What's the antidote to inner purity? That means applying inner purity if there's this feeling of envy. One of them is to look at this person that has a position or power. Look at that person and say, that person has gone through a lot of hard work to get to where they are. They have gone through so much work that I can only hope or wish that I had as much energy, persistence to be where they are. In fact, they're worthy of being worshipped because they put a lot of hard work to build that company, to make the right connections, to sit down with focus, concentrate, and therefore learn that skill that got them to where they are today. That's the truth, is it not? That's a fact. This is a game called accommodation. I'm seeing things as they are instead of resisting it. Oh, I don't like them being where they are. That's called resisting. So they have gone through a lot of work, and that is something for you to learn from. In fact, if you think about it, envy can even be useful at the beginning because envy lets a person know, what do you value? A soccer player is not going to be envious of a #1 swimmer. They're going to be envious of a #1, they may or may not be, of a #1 soccer player. So we only have envy towards those things that we genuinely value. So in that aspect, envy can serve as a tool. However, we need to be careful now, because now we say, okay, let me now experience the fullness of my envy. Therefore, I can really see what is important to me in my life, right? So I'm not just giving you one aspect, how nothing can really, everything really has a tool to itself if you look at it in the right way. The other thing you can recognize is this person that I am having envy towards, which is enjoying a position of power that I wish I was in that place, that person has also shortcomings in other things. But what is my error? My error is because they're great in one thing, I now made the entire person as great in everything. This is what we do when envy comes. We generalize one little component, one skill, and we say the entire person in everything, how they talk, how they sing, how they dance, how they write, right? Everything about them is great. Is that the truth? No. They are good in only one single thing that have worked very, very hard for. Therefore, they deserve it. Therefore, let's not generalize the person as this one big God now. The other is you too are good at something and have a skill or are brilliant in something that others wish were in your position. Now, from your standpoint, suppose someone's envious towards you and they're rude, right? They're showing this dislike towards you. From your standpoint, are you deserving of that? Do you deserve that kind of treatment? No, you're just innocently good, right? You didn't try to be good. You just are where you are. So in no way are you deserving of that treatment. In that same way, no one else who is good in that position is deserving of our unfair treatment. This is why on the beginning I said that person absolutely deserves to be where they are. And also remember, every skill and every talent is of the one being Ishvara. Therefore, how can you be jealous of Ishvara that you are already at one with right now? Now, a common complaint sometimes is, yeah, but they're born like that. They're born brilliant, right? They got the genes, okay? They may be true or they may not be true, irrespective. Is it not also true that everyone has three powers? Power to know, power to desire, power to act. Jnana Shakti, Icha Shakti, Kriya Shakti. Are you denied that power any more or less than the person next door? Absolutely not. Even if you're born in a poor environment, from the standpoint where you are, you still can exercise the power to know something, the power to desire a bigger vision, and a power to act in such a way as to manifest that bigger vision, which is meaningful to you. Look at Oprah Winfrey. Her story is amazing. She was born into poverty, to a single teenage mom, and she was molested, sexually harassed as a child. Oprah Winfrey herself got pregnant at 14 and her child got lost. She lost her child at 14. And then what happened? She's now a billionaire, one of the most successful, inspirational women in the world. She took what she knows, what she desires, and what she did, and she directed it into a helpful, useful means. So what is your and my excuse? In other words, any story that we create is only to help us, to keep us in the state of not moving, whereas in actuality, these three God-given powers are never denied from you, even right now. Okay, now let's look at inner purity in respect to what makes us happy. I said last week that depending on what makes you happy determines how evolved you are. So there's three levels of happiness. So now let's ask, what makes me happy? What makes you happy, right? Level one. This is the uneducated level of happiness. This is whereby if someone else is unhappy, you're unhappy. You're unhappy, I'm unhappy. In other words, this is a herd mentality. I'm totally dependent upon your happiness for me to be happy. If others are unhappy with a sad face, then I am happy. Others are unhappy, I am happy. Why? Because in contrast to where they are, it makes me feel good that I'm in a much better position. Others are unhappy, it makes me thrilled. Oh, I am so lucky to be alive. Sportsman walking, falls down and breaks his finger. Are you okay? Oh, at least I didn't break my leg like he did. In other words, I'm using someone else's misfortune to feel better about myself. True story. A immobile grandma, a lady, nevertheless, immobile grandma, now she doesn't move a lot, was asked about, what do you think about COVID? She said, I feel so happy because everyone's in a lockdown and now the whole nation is immobile, just like me. Level 1 happiness. What makes her happy? That we're all in a lockdown and she's in a lockdown. So now we're also suffering just like her. Therefore, she feels much better. Just an example. Level 2. This is the level of empathy. When others are happy, I'm happy. That's good. Normal, natural. When others are unhappy, then you do something to lift them up. You do something to cheer them up, whatever you can. Because you know that by them being cheered up, does that not make you feel good? When you realize that you were able to do something to affect the entire environment in a positive way, of course it gives you confidence and makes you feel good. Therefore, when others are happy, I'm happy. This is level 2. When others are unhappy, then immediately I go into save them mode, save the world mode, do something, cheer them up, right? Show some skill, express something that you can give. Everyone has something. How are you? That's good enough. Ask them, how is their day? Because you too would appreciate the same if someone came up to you and you will be highly grateful. Level 3. This is the highest level that a human being can possibly express in terms of their evolution. There's no higher level than level 3. This is the level of active contribution, which we call karma yoga. Whether others are happy or not, it doesn't really affect you, even though it does at some level, but you have a sense of independent uniqueness in this world. You play an independent role. And that role is independent of what the society or how the society is. If the society is sad or happy, it doesn't actually affect you because you're too busy giving out, shining your strengths, shining your unique signature that you are brilliant at. This is active contribution. Whether people are happy or unhappy, that actually has little to do with you because you are rooted knowing where you stand in this world and what is your role to the point where you are not dependent upon others' happiness or lack of it. This is level 3, karma yoga. So what makes us happy determines how evolved we are. Okay, let's summarize the names so far. Value 1, amanitvam, absence of demanding validation or respect. Value 2, repeat. Adambhitvam, absence of pretense. In other words, of making up stories or adding false details. Value 3, ahimsa, deliberation in thought, word, and action. Deliberate, conscious. Value 4, kshantihi, accommodation or glad acceptance of what is. Glad acceptance of the vyavaharika world instead of adding my own projections. Value 5, arjavam, straightforwardness. This is alignment of thought, word, and action. You're minimizing the gaps between what you say, what you do, and how you think. Value 6, acharyopasanam, service to the teacher, knowing where the teacher's role stands in relation to what you are looking for in life. Repeat, value 7, shaucham, inner and outer cleanliness. Value 8, stairyam, stairyam, steadfastness.
Shtaryam is nishta, firmness or steadiness, derived from the Sanskrit root shtar, to stand. Shtarya indicates constancy or perseverance. Shtarya is karma nishta, swadharma nishta, steadfastness in action, in one's duty. A steady effort on my part towards whatever goals I have committed to achieve, or towards whatever duties my responsibilities impose upon me is shtarya. When it comes to applying effort towards a goal, most of us find we are heroes at the start. We begin very bravely, lions of resolution at first, but then the initial enthusiasm wanes. The energy of the heroic beginner dwindles when the total effort required becomes clear. We find some pretext to escape from the responsibility. Lack of steadfastness towards a commitment results in non-achievement of goals, which in turn builds up guilt of failure. Shtarya means there should be steady effort towards whatever we have committed to achieve until it is achieved. A steadiness that neither yields to laziness nor is disturbed by distraction.
In this context, where Lord Krishna is talking about the values that make the mind ready to discover the truth of the self, Sthairya refers to nishtha, firmness, in seeking self-knowledge. When my commitment is to know the truth of myself, I need steadiness in the means, sadhana nishtha, to accomplish this goal. I must apply myself steadily to the secondary qualifications, such as cultivating certain attitudes, study of language, of the scriptures, and similar pursuits that prepare my mind for self-knowledge. The knowledge of the self is not a partial knowledge. It is not like the knowledge of a given discipline, but something total, the total content of all knowledge. For this goal, the goal in which all other goals resolve, total commitment is involved. In this total commitment, there must be sthairya, steadfastness.
Thank you. What is steadfastness?
Stoic?
It's like straightness, but over a longer time.
Yep, good. Yep. So sustaining over a long period of time. What else?
Having a strong willpower.
Good. Strong willpower. Yeah.
Not easily distracted from
Not
the
easily
goal.
Good. Not easily sidetracked or distracted. Okay. So stairyam, steadfastness, is perseverance, having self-motivation. Can you motivate yourself without someone pushing you or telling you what to do? Are you self-motivated? Self-driven? Yes, in some things, but not in other things. This is the fact. Not in everything, but in some things. Yes, in some things, no. We will talk about why is that the case. So this is the capacity to have commitment, a favorite word of ours, commitment throughout tough times. Easy to have commitment when everything's going well, but it's much harder to have and stay committed, locked in, when things are not going as we want them to be. Discouraging times, commitment still, nevertheless. Despite curiosity in many things in this world, despite duties that you have towards those that are close to you, despite ups and downs, there is always something, one thing, one person to whom you are committed, and that commitment remains unshakable, unmovable, unblowable. Nothing can disturb it. That's commitment. Sure, there's ups and downs, but the platform remains ever still, ever secure, unable to be compromised, unshakable. So everyone has this in one thing or the other. Everyone has perseverance or persistence in something. No, I don't. Really. How about complaining? I don't have persistence. Well, you said that yesterday. Why are you saying that today? Because I don't have persistence. Well, you definitely have persistence in saying that you don't have persistence. That's persistence. So we all have persistence. Even in complaining, that's persistence. But it's directed towards that is something that is not very helpful. We have persistence in eating, obviously. We have persistence in exercise. We have persistence in work. Some people have persistence for 8 hours playing computer games, poker, or games. So having persistence is not a new thing. It's not something to be excited about. What is worthy of discussion is this question. Suppose that you have a desire to have commitment or persistence towards something that is important. You know it's important, it's valuable, but you cannot quite get yourself to follow through regularly, right? It's on and off. Suppose you want to learn a new skill and you kind of like, oh, maybe every week, kind of like random. There's no regularity there, but you know it's an important thing. You would like to master it. You would like to bring it into your beingness, into your life. So the question is, what are the reasons for having persistence in one thing and not so much persistence in something else? Why do we give up so easily in some things and refuse to give up in other things? That's the real question. Our vasanas, okay, that means our likes and dislikes towards one thing keep us occupied. No, I'm not going to let you learn something new. Come back to me. Come back to the computer games and then play. Why else do we give up so easily when, especially during tough times?
Because we don't see the value of the pursuit.
Good. In other words, there's the connection. We have a weak emotional connection to that particular thing. If you think about it, those things that you have commitment to, is there not a strong emotional connection to that? Is there not attachment? Oh, attachment. Don't be attached. No. You see, it's not so black or white. It's just saying don't be attached. Those things that you have most persistence towards, that you're most committed to, you're actually emotionally attached to it. And does it hurt you? Is it causing any pain? No, it's actually helping you to sustain a lifestyle that is worthy of living. So the emotional connection is weak. Therefore, we just simply do not come back to it. It's haphazard, random. Okay? But what's the solution? Suppose there's a weak emotional connection and you want to have a stronger emotional connection. You want to be more attached to something in order for it to be a regular part of your life. What's the solution?
You've got to dive into it, get into it and make it an attachment.
Yeah, and so one thing that we can just get into it is we can make it fun. We can say, how can I make this emotionally fun, right? You can add some music because music induces emotions. You can dance your way into it. You can dance your way into the Gita. You can dance the verse, for example, highly memorable. Make it funny, right? Make it exciting. Add emotion, life into it, some spice, right? Go get some spices and put it onto this work that is seemingly dry. Maybe you can reward yourself. If I get to the small success, I will have a chocolate bar.
Yeah, just a technique from NLP is to just say you've got a thing that you like pursuing, like computer games. You find out what the components of that really attract you. Not the computer game itself, but the mechanism behind it, and try to copy those mechanisms into the things that you sort of don't want to do, but should do.
So in other words, what David is saying is in NLP, there's a technique where you take something that is close to you, have an emotional connection to it, and you say, what is the texture of this? What is the color of this? Where is the location of the feeling, the positive feeling that I'm having towards this thing? And you look inside your body, because you're trying to find out where in the body is this positive emotion. And then you say, okay, now knowing what the experience is for something positive, let me now think about this new thing in that same way. Let me think about this new thing in that same location in the body as this thing that I'm already attracted to. In other words, you're spilling qualities from one onto the other, therefore transference. What about the why isn't big enough? Why do we give up so easily? Because the why isn't big enough. It is not a must. It's an absolute must to eat, drink water, obvious, easy. But when it comes to things that we give up easily, we still do not know, how is it relevant? How is it beneficial for me? We're not clear. We haven't taken time to see the relevancy to you, like deeply emotionally to the core of yourself. You haven't taken time to do that yet. Therefore, it is not a must yet. Okay? What's the solution to this? Ask yourself, what qualities should this have? We'll call this X. What qualities should X have for it to become a must for me? How do you find this out? As David was saying, look at those qualities which you're already attracted to, which are already a must for you. What qualities does that thing or person have which makes you committed to them or it? Those same qualities are therefore able to be transferred onto this new thing. What qualities should this have for it to become a must for me? Find that out. Take some time, 5 minutes. Well, it should make me feel secure, warm, fuzzy, because that's how something else already makes you feel. Therefore, it's up to you to investigate. What about the mind perceives the challenge overwhelming? It's too intimidating, right? Some things are not intimidating, but this, I see it as intimidating. In other words, this thing is bigger than my confidence. Suppose you walk across a bridge and the bridge is shaky. I don't want to walk across. Why not? Because it's shaky, I'm afraid. So what do? You go back to a level that you're comfortable with. You cross a bridge that is not shaky, that is concrete, solid, because that is matching your confidence. Then once you've gained that confidence, you say, well, now I'm ready to go across a shaky bridge. Therefore, this thing that you give up so easily with is most likely bigger than the level that you're capable of handling. It's bigger than you. So what's the solution to this? Break it down into chunks, into digestible, manageable portions that you feel comfortable with. How do you read a book? One word at a time, one sentence, one verse, one paragraph, one page, one chapter, one book, done. Can't read a whole book at once, but I can read one word. Break it down into parts that make you excited to actually follow through.
You could do that with time as well, because I think in a lot of these instances, you know that something is good, you know that you will benefit from it. You just don't quite feel ready yet to start right now, but you can imagine that it will happen and you're going to do it. And I think that the procrastination that comes out of that can actually be a little bit too much, and you never get it done. And so that chunking it down in time as well as in space, in that sense, where right now, you can only live in the right now. And as long as you hold that image of yourself in that, with that thing or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve or that you want to be identified with, it's got to happen right now, right this very moment, just this moment, that's it. And just keep holding that.
Yeah, so it's also part of accommodation, accommodating this moment and working with it. And if you're resisting this moment, well, then chunk it down. The other thing that, other reason why we give up so easily is we're involved in too many things going on in life, too many things to handle, to learn. And now why is this the case? Because I fear of missing out on something else. Therefore, I want to do as many things as possible. You fear of missing something out. Okay. Therefore, we don't really master anything because we're involved in too many things. What's the solution to this kind of thinking? First of all is everything you've ever done, everything you've ever said, everything you've ever had was already done, said, and experienced in your past lifetimes. No matter what you do already now in this life, it was already done. So you can infer. basis of the past lifetimes, there is nothing I haven't said, nothing I haven't experienced, nothing I haven't learned. And yet here I am again. So therefore decide in this lifetime, I choose to simplify, maybe just master one or two things. One or two things is fine. One or two, three things tops. Master it, get into it deeply. Become the master of it. The other thing is you can say or come to accept that even if you try everything, at the end of a lifetime, how much was that everything in respect to the total? It was still an infinitesimal small component to infinity. So what's more important, to get through things or to be happy? Either way, you still only attended one infinitesimal part of the total. Also, what makes us more happy? Few things that we're really good at, that we're spontaneous in, that we're at one with while we're doing it, or many things that we're doing superficially. The answer is pretty clear, isn't it? Few things that we're immersed with versus many things that we're only superficially kind of handling. Yeah, the ocean, the surface of the ocean is pleasant, but underneath is the coral, the fish, colors, much more interesting underneath. The deeper we go, the more contentment we find. A few years ago, what was the big hot topic? Multitasking. Oh, what's today? Opposite, mindfulness. What was multitasking? Do as many things as you can. Today, mindfulness. Fully immerse yourself in a few things that you can. Because we figured out through these very short periods of time, it is those things that we're deeply involved with that makes us happy. Not doing a lot of things. Another reason why we give up easily is negative associations to improvement. You're not changing. Why are you not changing? Changing so slow. Why? Because we've got negative associations, what it means to change or to improve. I've invented a story why it's pointless committing. I've committed before, it didn't work out. What's the point of committing now? That's a story. And this story is preventing us from committing again because we're living in the past and bringing it into the present and then dictating the present on the basis of the past, which is no longer relevant today. What's the solution here? Ask, if there was a story, what would it be? If there was a story in my mind preventing me from committing to something, what would that story be? If there was one, write it down. If there was a story of excuse why I shouldn't, what would that story in the mind be? Write that down. Another reason why we give up easily is because we have addictions. Someone said earlier, binding likes and dislikes. Now, likes and dislikes, inherently, there's nothing wrong with them. Because being alive, what does it mean to be alive? To self-express yourself. Is that what we're doing all day long? We're self-expressing ourselves. To be alive, you cannot help yourself but to self-express. But what is self-expression? Likes and dislikes. I love, I don't like. What is that? Nothing but likes and dislikes. Self-expression equals likes and dislikes, equals no problem. Nothing wrong with that. What's wrong with being a cook? I like being a cook. What's wrong with that? Nothing. If a cook didn't like being a cook, he'd probably starve, right? Who would clean the public services? I'm not sure if they like that, but he does. Some people do, right? Because they're contributing to the environment. So there's nothing wrong with likes and dislikes. But when does it become a problem? Likes and dislikes. When they convert into I have to or else. I have to have this in my life. I have to do this or else. That's when it becomes an addiction. That's called a binding like or dislike. How do you know whether it's a binding like or dislike? An addiction? You say to yourself, can I say no to this for at least one day? Just one day. No to wine today. Or whatever, right? I don't know what people do nowadays. No, today. But then even after you said no, you just keep on thinking, I miss it. No, I can't concentrate. I can't focus. Then it's likely an addiction. What else can we do if it's an addiction? You can say to yourself, why do I have to? Why do I have to do this right now? Why? I don't have to. Challenge that story in the mind. And you can say to yourself, what do I absolutely need actually? Well, air, food, and shelter, basically. What more can you ask for, right? Block your nose. What about your car and everything else? Useless. Air, food, and shelter. That's what you essentially really need. You can also say no firmly, like to a child, like you're treating the mind like a child. No, not today. See, it's so simple, but we actually never do this. We never talk to our mind like a little child. No, wanting mind, addicted mind. You can also understand you're not here to hang out, right? You're not born just to hang out, chill out on the beach, even though this is what we're sold, right? In the kind of marketers tell us, here's a little drink with an umbrella in there, go to Hawaii and then just hang out. That's also part of the life, but we're not here to hang out. What are we here to do? The whole Bhagavad Gita answers this question. We're here to act, to contribute our talents. Now, what is acting other than, what is acting doing? What does it mean to act? It promotes growth. To act is to grow, is it not? How do you grow? By acting, because if you act, you go through trial, through error, and you learn through error. You go through experiences, and experiences make us grow. So acting promotes growth. But growth demands commitment. Because how do you grow other than committing to do it one more time? Growth demands my perseverance, persistence, commitment. But what does commitment cultivate? Commitment cultivates contentment. Because what more can you want from yourself than knowing, to be able to say, I was able to stick by through ups and downs. I was able to go through this for a long time. What more can you have than that in terms of your contentment? It gives you confidence. Action promotes growth. Growth demands commitment. Commitment cultivates contentment. Why do we not apply sufficient commitment in spirituality, in our journey of self-growth? Someone tells us, do this, do that, and we don't persist. We try a few things, but we just cannot quite stay. Why is this? One of the reasons is the spiritual teachings are out of context, right? They're partially presented, like Facebook posts, those quotes, one-liner quotes on Facebook. How do you turn that? How do you convert that into a real life? It's totally out of context. And therefore, this becomes the normal of spirituality, like one-liner quotes on Facebook or Instagram, I think they have today also. Pictures. Chasing highs. That's what spirituality is about. Feeling high all day long. So why do we not persist in spirituality? Because our perception of what spirituality is distorted. So therefore, we have to redefine what spirituality means. So let's redefine spirituality. What does it mean to pursue spirituality? It means hard work until last breath. Does that sound exciting? Not as exciting as we have been taught, those one-liner posts. Hard work every single day until last breath. Re-looking at every thought that comes. Addressing your emotions, confronting them gladly. Not putting anything under the carpet. Gladly attacking it head-on when it comes. Hard work. After the whole course being expounded to Arjuna by the Lord, did Arjuna attain moksha or he went to heaven? Who better can expound the knowledge of the whole than the Lord himself? Arjuna listened, and Arjuna upon death goes to heaven. What does this mean? It is not enough just to hear things. we need to follow it up. We need to follow up our hearing and contemplate it until last breath. That's why I say it is hard work. Just reading the Gita, listening to self-knowledge once, thinking that's it, it's not good enough until last breath. Now, let me give you examples where steadfastness is needed. How about in a relationship? Do we need steadfastness? Do we need commitment in a relationship? Absolutely. Suppose partner A points out an improper act of partner B, and then partner B gets offended, right? Because this is not normal. Usually you stand up for me. Partner A, being attached to partner B, decides to keep quiet because they don't want to rock the boat. They want to keep quiet for the sake of preserving harmony. But is partner A really preserving harmony? No, because partner A, even if they're quiet, is still holding in that thought, and they're feeling uncomfortable by the presence of partner B doing that improper act again and again. So where's the question of harmony? I'm only creating superficial harmony on the outside, and yet inside I am suffering. How about Yudhishthira, keeping quiet, right? Someone burns your house. Imagine this, someone burns your house and you just keep quiet, right? How's it going, man? How's your day? How did that result into a war? Yudhishthira tried to maintain a superficial harmony by keeping quiet, and yet it only resulted in the entire Mahabharata. A contributing force, you want the only factor, but definitely contributed. How about raising children and teaching children Dharma? Make it less of a lecture. Do children like lectures? Let's give you one big lecture. Let me tell you, son, the ways of being. Rather focus or change your attitude as a parent and ask yourself this: how can I make this teaching relevant to his or her stage of life? Talk their language. For example, you can demonstrate how following Dharma actually helps them achieve their goals. You can demonstrate that. How doing the right thing actually in the long run helps them achieve their goals. You can show them how following Dharma, the right values in life, creates a cheerful tomorrow. Not even future, because kids are, usually in the present. So just talk about tomorrow. Show them how a cheerful tomorrow is a result of today. They have to see that cause-effect relationship. You can also show them case studies. What are the consequences of losing perspective? Not incorporating all of the variables in the environment. You can show them that, the case studies. You can show them to what's the consequences of not thinking twice before they're offered something. In school, hey, here's some cannabis. Okay. You can show them the consequences of that. Here's a porn magazine. Okay. Show them the consequences of not thinking twice before being offered something. You can show them the consequences of succumbing to peer pressure. Very common in schools. How to deal with that. They need to know that clearly. You need to talk about it before it actually comes. One question you can definitely ask them is this: son, daughter, you're driven. I get it. You want this, this, this. Who doesn't, right? All kids are driven, right? They want something in life. But you ask them when they're ready, you say, behind your drive for whatever it is, behind your drive for girls, car, house, money, behind your drive, what is your real search? Don't answer it for them. Just let them think. What is your real search behind your drive for this and this and this? You already know it's happiness. You as a parent know that it's happiness, but let them figure it out for themselves. And you can show them your ultimate drive for this and this is to be happy. They have to figure this out for themselves, and you can help them. You can guide them. Such a simple question, but we hardly ever ask these questions.
Andre, I tell them all the time, but they don't listen.
Yeah, they don't listen now, but
I just keep trying.
Yeah. But don't think that it's into ways, because the brain needs some time to assimilate these teachings. Sometimes it takes 10, 20 years to actually register. So nothing goes to waste, because the brain is like, a tape recorder. It records everything, and it only triggers when the mind's sufficiently mature, and then it comes out. Yeah, so you're not wasting your time. So what is steadfastness? The capacity to continue the pursuit, your endeavor, especially during tough times, challenging times. Whether those times are imagined in your own mind or whether they're real, still have the ability to continue, to commit, irrespective. Okay, let's revise. Value 1, amanitvam, absence of demanding validation or respect. Value 2, adambitvam, absence of pretense, filling the details. Value 3, ahimsa, deliberate thought, word, and action. Kshantihi, accommodation or glad acceptance of what is. Arjavam, straightforwardness, that means minimizing the space between thought, word, and deed. Acharyopasanam, service to the teacher, knowing the importance of being guided objectively. Value 7, shaucham, inner and outer purity. Value 8, stairyam, steadfastness or commitment, the ability to commit, no matter what. Stubborn commitment. Value 9, atma vinigraha.
Atma vinigraha means mastery over the mind. The Sanskrit word atma basically is the name for whatever is referred to by the first person singular I. In this capacity, Atman indicates many things which, depending upon the frame of reference, have the sense of I. Atman can be used for the physical body, or it can refer to the vital functions of the body. Mind can be called Atman, or sometimes Atman stands for the ego sense of the mind, that ahankara. Atman also is Sachid Ananda, the timeless, limitless awareness that is the truth of I. Less clearly, but in a similar sense in English, the pronoun I, when analyzed, refers to various functions and assemblages, as well as to the ultimate content of I-ness, depending upon the speaker's context. I am tired is body I. I am hungry is physiological I know this. I am sad. I've decided to do this are the various activities of the mind I own it. I did it. I enjoy it are ahankara I, the ego I. The pronoun I can mean when the speaker knows the nature of himself, the I am of Sachit Ananda, the fullness that cannot be qualified. Here in the context of Lord Krishna's instruction to Arjuna, Atman refers to the mind. Antakarana, vinigraha means restraint or curbing, which in order to avoid any connotation of repression is translated with reference to this value as mastery. What is mastery of the mind? Is it checking or controlling the grey matter, the cells of the brain? No, that which must be mastered is not the brain. What must be mastered is our ways of thinking. The mind is a colourful kaleidoscope of fanciful thoughts that come and go, never constant, rarely still, subject to sudden starts and turns, capricious notions. The mind is whimsical by nature. However, I, the thinker, need not fulfill the fancies or yield to the caprices. Fancies and notions are many, that is the mind, but I am the sanctioning authority.
So what is Atma Vinigraha referring to? The word Atma is referring to the gross or the subtle body. It's not referring to awareness. And Vinigraha means mastery or management. In other words, Atma Vinigraha is mastery of the mind or management of the mind. The question is, what exactly are we managing? We're managing 17 components according to our scriptures. We're managing the 5 organs of action. They are, and we can see on the board, we're managing our speech. That's an organ of action, what we say. We're managing the hands because your hands can do gestures and they do things. We're managing our sex organ. We're managing our feet. This means where we get taken from position A to position B. We're managing our anus. That's already taken care of. So we're managing that consciously. We're also managing the 5 organs of perception. That means what you expose your eyes, ears, nose, and skin to. We have to be deliberate about that. I can expose my eyes to a nightclub, what happens after I wake up, trails about what happened yesterday. That's because I put these eyes onto something that induced that nature. We're also managing the 5 physiological functions, the 5 pranas. If you have a digestion issues, does that not ruin our entire day? Absolutely. We can have all of the knowledge in the world, just one digestion issue, that is the end of yourself for the one day. So we are learning to take care of or to manage our physiological functions like digestion, having a healthy circulation in the system. And we're also managing the mind, which represents our emoting, our doubting, and our memories. Right now, you can remember a disempowering thought, and that's going to affect your state of mind. Or you can also remember a time when you felt really empowered. That's also going to affect your state of mind. And we can also manage the last one, our buddhi, which is our thinking capacities. So 5 pranas, so that's 15. Mind and buddhi is 17. Therefore, we are learning to be deliberate about these 17 components. Now, what are the examples of Atma Vinigraha? Let's give us something that we can relate to. There's a nice universal example in the Katha Upanishad. We've heard about it, I'm sure, where there is 5 horses with reins and the chariot, right? The driver on the chariot is operating the horses. Now, just imagine this, the scene. Now, the 5 horses, right, maybe beautiful, whatever color you want, maybe they're white horses or black horses, and there's 5 of them. Now, if those horses are kind of untamed and they just want to go in their own direction, then no matter how intelligent the driver is, those horses are going to overpower the driver, right? I had a friend, actually, she works with horses, and she was showing me how sensitive horses are when they are in the proximity of a human being, how you need to, present yourself in a non-confrontational, friendly manner for the horse to accept you. So, and also sometimes the horse, it doesn't listen. So you need to tame them. You need to make them obedient towards your presence. And that takes time. So in that same way, we need to take time to make these 5 senses. They just want to go out there constantly. Entertainment, this, entertainment, nothing's wrong with that, but just over too much. We need to tame them and bring them back onto what we value in life. On and on and on. And it takes time, just like those horses. So the horses, 5 of them represent our 5 organs of perception. The reins, that means the attached to the horses, they represent the mind. Now, suppose you don't hold onto those reins firmly. What's going to happen? We're going to drop them. In other words, we need to hold them firmly because there's so much movement. The horses are moving. Sometimes the wind is going to push if it's strong enough, it's going to push the reins out of our hands. So we need, who needs to hold it firmly? The driver. So the driver needs to hold those reins firmly in the grip of his or her hands. Those reins represent the mind. So the mind controls the senses, but who controls the mind? Who controls the reins? The driver. And the driver needs to be informed. As a driver, you need to know where you're going, how you're going to get there, why are you going there, who are you going to meet, what are you going to do afterwards. The driver needs to have a Bhagavad Gita next to him in the chariot, maybe Google or something, right? Not just that, but also you need to have your support, right? Your family of support in order to keep you a happy driver. You don't want to just be operating the horses. You want to be a happy driver. So the 5 horses, the reins, and the driver. The 5 senses, the mind, and the intellect have to work in unison. Now, let me give you some situational example of where Atma Vinigraha is required. Okay, suppose now it's 8 o'clock and he's kind of like getting a little bit antsy, this should end and I'm starting to move and hurry up, and you just cannot focus, right? Bringing your mind back intentionally, deliberately onto the lesson, that is Atma Vinigraha. Sit down and then the knees start stepping up and down. I see this commonly in men, right? I don't know. I don't understand this. What is Atma Vinigraha? Recognizing that and then intentionally saying stop. And then you stop. You're controlling the body part, which just wants to, like a horse, it wants to go its own direction. It takes effort, training, obedience. So what is Atma Vinigraha? it is asking yourself this question: where are there leaks in my individuality? Where are there leaks in my personality? Where is energy seeping through in my individuality? You know, like a wall with little holes. You need to find them. Where is water pouring out? What channels is my energy leaking through? And then plug them one by one. Maybe excess use of words, maybe too much movement, unable to sit still, sit down. My mind just wants to move, wants to get up. You need to train. No, sit. Like a puppy, sit. That takes time. That's an energy leak. So therefore, where are there leaks in my personality? And then plug them one by one. It could be in your thoughts, maybe inappropriate use of words, too much words. Maybe the tone is too high, too low, too fast, too slow. That's a leak. Could be physically, maybe excess amount of exercise. Do you really need that much exercise? That could be a leak. Maybe too little exercise, right? So where are those leaks? I need to plug them in. Next week, I will talk about what are the means to managing the mind. We talked about the principle of Atma Vinigraha, managing the mind. But the question now is, how do we manage this mind? And I will talk about firstly understanding the 4 types of thinking that you have to understand: instinctive thinking, mechanical thinking, deliberate thinking, and spontaneous thinking. And we need to go through a progression of these thinkings. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.